Hello, it is Wednesday the 5th of June and we're going to take a look at some crypto. We will start tonight with Bitcoin, which has had a really nice rally, a big jump. And here we are pushing up against these previous highs. The key question is, are we starting another leg higher? Are we going to break out of this sideways consolidation that we have been in since the beginning of March? Or are we just retesting the range highs before another swing lower in a bigger three-wave correction? Remember, we've already made a pretty nice textbook three-wave correction here. But the key thing is to break out and make sure that this doesn't turn into a bigger one. For example, here, back here when we rallied up in June, exactly the same June 2023, we retested the highs that we made in April, and we basically stayed within this sideways range and really didn't bottom until September. We did a really nasty kind of summer slump. So we need to be a little bit careful about that. There's one thing that I'm noticing in the ETF flows. Today, at the start of the month, we've had a really big spike, biggest move higher in ETF inflows since, beginning of April. And I'm wondering if this is to do with the ETF and funds rebalancing. As I've spoken about this before, and institutions or bigger funds, they will allocate so much to be held in crypto or in Bitcoin. So they say we have 5% and Bitcoin has a bit of a pullback month. It may be that at the start of the month they need to buy more Bitcoin to keep it at 5%. If Bitcoin's gone down and the value of everything else in the portfolio has gone up, then the percentage that's in Bitcoin will be less and they will need to buy more to balance it, and vice versa. If Bitcoin has a really strong month, you may see selling, and because they need to bring the position down to bring it back to that percentage. But if we look back at previous months, so if we look back at if we look back at the end of April, beginning of May, the worst day was the last day of April, and then the biggest day prior to this was the beginning of the month. So is this a seasonal thing? The beginning of April, we did have a little bit of a bounce, and that was it for the beginning of the month. I think prior to this, we were seeing a lot of GBTC outflows, and that seems to have reversed now. So I'm going to be watching this to see if this becomes a bit of a trend, because it could become a little bit of a tradable event. We'll see how it plays out over the next few months and whether this becomes a pattern as more and more of the volume in Bitcoin is in ETFs. So key question is, so we've done this before. So if we take a look at Bitcoin, and so we know that at that this is a weekly chart. Let's just go to the daily chart for a minute here. So we know here at the beginning of March we had here's the beginning of March. Here we had a really nice rally. We tested these highs, and we did the same thing here, beginning of May, really nice rally. But we didn't, it eased off once we got through that kind of beginning of the month. What I'm a little bit concerned about here in terms of fibs is we haven't quite got a breakout, and there's a little bit of a pattern going on. So if I go from this low to high here, and let's look at it on the weekly, it's a bit easier. Maybe not. Let's look at it on the daily. So when we did this here, we had a big 50% bounce, a deep pullback, and our second swing came up to this high here. We retested the high and then a deep pullback. Once you get a bigger ABC, I usually put my fib retraces. It's normal to put it over both swings, and you see big rally to the 50% deep pullback. Here we are at the 886. So this 886 level at 71,800 is a really big deal if we look at these previous highs and lows. Potentially we could be just looking at these highs and setting up another leg lower. One thing you tend to do when you reverse at an 886 fib level is your first target is back to the 50%, which would normally mean here. And we didn't get here. So it wouldn't surprise me if we can't break out above here, that this is the first swing. We've had a three-wave correction and we see another leg lower. And the big kind of pivot level I see in the middle here in Bitcoin is 65,000. I wouldn't be surprised if we did another leg lower and pull back to this before potentially this correction is over and we break out. So I'm going to be really bullish if we can hold above 71,800, 72,000. But until then, I think there is still a risk that we do another leg lower, and I'm watching for this to roll over here. At the moment, we just tagged this level today. It's all very quiet, nothing very big is going on. Let's go back to the weekly chart here. I just want to talk about where we go if we do break out. So if we do hold above that 71,700 level, when I count these swings here, I think there's a couple of ways to look at it. Now, either this was our first swing, and then we did, either this was wave 2, and then we've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if this correction is over, we're going to start a big swing that's relative to this first swing here. And that makes it easier because then we can measure how much this first swing is, and we can look at kind of multiples of this swing to see how long this would be. However, what if, in fact, I think we could argue that this was our first swing and this is potentially a bigger wave 2. So what in fact we're doing is wave 5 of 3, not a new bigger wave 5. And so the target's going to be relative to this swing. So if we do that, we measure wave 1, project it from wave 5, we can say above 71,700. Our target is 80,500. So 80,500 first target on the upside. If we measure, if we count it the other way, we go from here and we say we're starting a new big wave 5. Oh look, this 72,000 level is a big deal, isn't it? I think we can say 81,700 is likely our first target. So somewhere between 80,000 and 80,700 would be the target if we break out. But let's be clear, it's not clear to me that we have broken out yet. We haven't made a new high, and I think that there is a little bit of a risk that this was just that kind of beginning of the month buying boost, and we don't want a little false breakout that ends up, you know, bringing us lower. Here, you know, looked like we were breaking out and it was a false breakout. Trend lines need 3 touches. Usually the third touch needs to be a false breakout. So I would really like to see Bitcoin hold above 72,000, and if it does, I think we are set for 80 and potentially, you know, 82,000 next. If we do a bigger pullback, I am looking for 65,000 potentially. Now, that I don't know if I would buy. Seriously, what you want to see is a really nice 5-wave move that tells us we're breaking out of this consolidation ideally and puts us to new highs. And at the moment, this kind of wave 2 and this wave 4 here look kind of even, so we really kind of need to break out here. I feel like if we don't and we pull back, this might be a bounce level, but I wouldn't rule out, to be honest. I think, you know, this would be a bit of a short if this happens, and we could end up doing a bigger 3-wave correction that looks like this. So 65,000 and this daily 50 moving average would become a kind of bit of a bull bear line, which you can see previously it really was. And when we were underneath it, you know, we were kind of struggling. And previously, you know, the daily 50 moving average has been a really good trend guide. We don't want to get stuck underneath it. We would see a bigger pullback then, and a bigger pullback to this daily 200 moving average. So that's where we are at Bitcoin. Looking pretty good, but not a breakout yet. Let's take a look at some of the others and see how they're doing. Ethereum against Bitcoin. As I said, at the moment, this is not the bullish reversal that we were looking for so far. We've had a really nice bounce off the lows, but we have got rejected again at the daily 50 moving average in Ethereum against Bitcoin. So do you want to be getting out of Bitcoin and getting into ETH yet? Not quite. If we take a look at the previous highs and lows, this has been a really good trend guide. And so staying underneath that and staying underneath this 0.057 level, I'm afraid, makes me a little bit nervous that, well, we're just not going. I wouldn't rush to short it after this huge bullish reversal, but we're not quite going up yet, and potentially need a little bit of a bigger pullback for that to happen. Now, we're in a little bit of a chop zone. We're supported by the daily 200 moving average. We're in a little bit of a sideways zone. Let's face it, we've been in now for a couple of weeks. I think there's a lot of confusion because nobody was expecting the Ethereum spot ETF to be announced. And so not all, it's all right to say we weren't ready, but these funds weren't ready either. So I think it's going to be a little bit choppy for a bit. And one of those scenarios where you kind of want to wait for a decent pullback and, and only buy when it bottoms and starts turning up again. Because could last a little bit longer while this sorts itself out. If we take a look at ETH against the dollar, here's the thing, sometimes everything, if everything goes up together, ETH's, going to look pretty good, and it does look pretty good here. We're in a sideways choppy range. If we put our daily candlesticks on, you can see we haven't really broken out of this choppy sideways range, and here we are in the second week of this. I think it could last a little bit longer. Now, what are the fib levels? Fib retrace levels tell us from the high to low here. Just like Ethereum, just like Bitcoin, we've reversed at an 886 fib. Normally for me, that points to a bigger pullback. And if you reverse here back to the 50%, and that's going to be back to 3,430 in ETH US dollar. So I do think that we're in a little bit of a risk of potentially a bigger pullback unless we close above 3,940. And if we do that, we're likely to retest the highs and keep going higher. Remember, in ETH, we are not at new all-time highs yet. And the big 886 retrace level. So 4,000, the big round number 4,014 is a really big deal. We could break out from this little sideways range and just retag that level and then do another swing lower. So we need to watch out. We need to close above 4,000, then 4,400, 4,800, and so on. 4,400 would be first upside target, 4,413 if we make a new high in ETH. It's just, not this, 2 weeks of sideways. I would be more bullish if we had a little false breakdown that spiked back and recovered rather than a breakout without a bigger pullback. But that's just how I like to trade it as well. Maybe that's wishful thinking. So don't really see a trade here at the moment. Let's talk about Solana. Is Solana outperforming ETH? When I looked at this before, remember we reversed Solana against ETH. We reversed at a retest of the highs in November 2021. Previous highs and lows are always a little bit of a sticky trouble area. If we look at where we've pulled back to, I feel like we are just at the bottom of a sideways range, and it may be that we could see a little bit of a bigger bounce. But again, I'm a little bit neutral. I like to see an equal measured move. I think for me, an equal measured move retraced to a fib levels is kind of really reassuringly levels that you're going to get a really good reaction from. So if I measure from this high to low here and project it from here, we haven't quite reached that fib level and we haven't quite reached that equal measured move. So I'm going to say that Solana against ETH 4650, 0.04650 is resistance. If I was looking to sell this for one more little swing lower, that's likely, I think, where it's going to come from. And if I was looking to buy this on a really nice long setup, 3950, 0.0395 would be where I'd be looking to buy. So I do think that there is a risk of a bounce and another swing lower before this is over. Not quite ready yet. How about Solana against US dollar? Because, a high tide floats all the boats. So if it's going to go up, let's just take a look at this one. Let's look at it on the weekly. Big picture, we're in a bit of a... I'm going to put fib retrace levels from this high that we made in 2021 to the low in 2022. We've reversed to the 786 fib. And this, I have to say, looks like a B leg. So it does look like this is another chart where I really do think we're going to see another swing lower before this correction is over. And the level that I'd be looking for in Solana is 104 still. And I know I said this before and I keep saying this, but really here we are in our third week of sideways chop. And so I have to say, I'm starting to think that this potentially could break down. At the moment, we haven't. And if we look at shorter time frame retrace levels here, let's go from get the lowest low here and the highest high. Yeah, I feel like this is a drop, three-wave correction, and we are, I'm afraid, about to see another swing lower. Maybe I'm being too gloomy, but they haven't pulled back to really a good enough level for me to buy yet. And I think it's just a little bit too choppy. So I'm still looking for another leg lower in Solana against US dollar. And I think we need to watch out for that. Now, new high, 5 waves up from this low, I'm going to say fabulous. If we get 5 waves up from the low that we made at the end of April, then a nice little 3-wave pullback, I'm all in. But for now, I just think with this looking like 3 waves corrective, that we may have a bigger pullback to come before this is over in Solana US dollar. Now, not everything looks terrible at the moment. There is a second coin, a second big coin that has made a new high, a new all-time high, and that, believe it or not, is BNB. Well, I'm sure if you're following along, you know it was BNB. So the key question is, has BNB got more upside? Where is my BNB chart gone? Should we be buying it here? Do I think it's going to keep going? Let's take a look. I've been looking at a whole, here we go, BNB. Lovely, lovely breakout. Not only that, we could argue that potentially we've got a very nice 5th wave going on here. As we know from looking at a lot of charts, previous highs and lows can always be a little bit tricky. When you retest a big high like this, you look above it and then you close back underneath it. It's called a swing failure pattern. We could quite easily see a swing failure pattern here on the weekly that could potentially set us up for a bigger pullback. Now at this point you could argue that potentially this is a wave 1, we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whenever you're looking at a pullback, the previous swing lows, if we're going to see one of those bigger corrections, are where you're going to look for support. So if we do end up with a swing failure here in BNB, then we're going to be looking from these lows, and we're going to be, in fact, we should go from the all-time, from this swing here, the bigger one. Just in case, let's go from here, be conservative, back to the middle of this range then, and 590 would be where key is. Underneath 590, we would see a bigger pullback to 512. So yes, very nice look above these previous highs today, but not the greatest reaction. We've got a pretty nasty tail on this daily candlestick. Now, we could say from this high, very rarely do we see a V bottom or a V top. Quite often, more often a V top, I have to say, in crypto. So how would we know that we are going to do that bigger correction and come back, to this 590 and potentially the lower 500s? Well, let's go from this most recent swing low. I don't know, sometimes I look at this most recent one. I would say underneath 666, we will see more pullback. Another way to look at it is use I really am a big fan of Heikin-Ashi candles. A daily Heikin-Ashi red, turning red here, would see a bigger pullback. 666 then underneath there, we are likely to come back, I'm afraid, towards that 580 level. It would be really bullish then, holding above these previous highs. A shallow 3-wave pullback that we can see on a lower time frame would be a better look. It may even be that that's what we've seen here. 1, 2, 3, we're going to hold the support and from the previous highs and turn higher from here. Let's talk about where we would go if we keep going higher then in BNB. I can't stress this enough. Like, if you're looking at this and you're wondering what to do here, it's because you've already got a position in BNB, because buying it at previous highs when it starts with a candlestick like this is really not a clever trade unless you can see a little bit of a pullback or back to a support level where you kind of really know you're wrong. Is this really good for crypto? It is pretty good, you know, it is pretty good, but which is going to be the, you know, really you should be looking and saying which is going to be the next one that is going to keep going and break to new highs. And this one would really, you know, this is why I say even if it's on a lower time frame, you really kind of want to see that 3-wave pullback and going green again to try it. And yeah, if we could do that right here, that would be a really good look. Right, so let's talk about where the targets might be now. So the simple thing to say would be wave 1, wave 2, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for 5. So we would see a pullback here and then new highs. If we keep going here, it's because this swing hasn't quite finished, and we could be seeing a bigger one, you know, 2, because this wasn't a new low, and then this swing. So the easiest way, I think, is to measure this wave 1, if that's what it was, from here. I like to see these have a mathematical relationship and a bit of a reaction. I think we did. I think if we keep going before we see a bigger pullback, 766 would be my next target, and above 766 potentially 1100. But if we can hold 690, don't pull back too far and continue to find buyers, 766 would be the next place I'd be looking on the upside in BNB. So quite interesting. At the moment though, it does look like a little bit of a swing failure pattern, which is a little bit of a concern. It could turn into a bigger pullback. But now, why is BNB doing so well? Is it because the exchanges are doing so well? Is it because, you know, the shit coins are doing so well? Some of the meme coins are so much fun to trade, and so, you know, if you get the right one, you know, epic trading at the moment. And so that is kind of quite good news for exchanges. There hasn't been all bad news for other exchanges. You know, it's quite easy to think of Coinbase as just being, you know, the ETF custodian now, but they have some news out. I think they have announced that they are launching a new smart wallet to address the pain points for new traders in crypto, which is, let's face it, it's bloody painful. I wish more of them would do that. When you think about how tricky it is for people who have not always been in crypto, you know, onboarding into these exchanges, learning about network fees and recovery phrases and seed phrases and how to get in and out, and then you haven't got any money for gas fees, and it's a pain in the ass for some people to learn. And that's before they even figure out how to open a chart or put in an order or a market order or a, you know, buy and sell. So it is difficult, and I think anything that these exchanges can do to make it easier for new people to come in would be very good news. So we did see a pretty nice bounce in Coinbase. Again, we're at a pretty, if we look at the, let's look at the weekly chart of this one, because we could argue, just like Bitcoin, that potentially this big correction that we have been in Coinbase since March could be over, and we are on our way up again and towards a new high. If I put my big fib retrace levels in Coinbase, we're doing that 61.8 thing, and I have to say that I kind of feel like more likely we're going to see a lower high and down to the 38.2, because in this zone in between 278 and 184 is one of those consolidation ranges. And if crypto turns lower, I wouldn't be rushing in with this Coinbase either. I think that we could potentially see a little bit of a bigger pullback if we keep going. Obviously, we're going to look for a retest of the 278, and above 278 we've got a really nice swing to 344 to look forward to. But yeah, not compelling. I hate to say it, but it's not compelling for me yet. So let's talk about some of those fun meme coins. Now, with the big move today in Nvidia, and it was a really big breakout from a big level in Nvidia, we could start seeing the AI coins make a little bit of a move. And when I look around at those, for example, the biggest AI coin is NIA. Let's take a look. We are in NIA. Again, very nice three-wave correction, turning higher. We're above the daily moving averages. I don't think this is a terrible idea to look at this one for at least to retest the highs and see if this one can keep going higher. And if we look at the retrace levels in NIA, this is NIA Tether we're looking at. This, if we retest the highs at 8.53 and get above it, we're looking for 10.83 and 13 next. And yeah, potentially this swing is over and we are starting another swing higher. There's quite a few. Most of them do look like they're turning up again from pretty nice levels. Here's Render, RNDR. Been in a really nasty sideways range. We're bouncing off the lows, bouncing off this 50% level. Could this be that we have done a wave 1, 2, 3, this is wave 4 and we're on our way up again? Holding above 10.9, I think we could. And this one, I think we could see new highs. These fib levels, I'm going to take them off because they don't quite work. And this is one that really is trading at new highs. Got above the highs from the launch in 2021, came back testing them. And so, yeah, bouncing off the lows. Most of these AI, I've got a couple of pages of these AIs, but most of them are having a pretty nice snapback, I have to say, after following Nvidia higher. So let's take a look at meme coins and what's going on with those. So the first one we're going to look at is WIF. So big picture in WIF, from the lows when it launched in March to the highs at the end of March, we did a textbook three-wave correction. My problem with this is this looks like three waves up, this looks like three waves back. And so we could just see another three waves up here in this one. So I'm a little bit concerned. I'm going to move my fibs from this low to high and see how we are doing with this rally. Because where we are at the moment with WIF, from this high to this low, we validated these fibs by the reaction we got at them. Here at the 38.2 and the 50%, and now here at the 61.8. 61.8 and 38.2 fib levels can be messy, and in between the 38.2 and the 61.8 fib retrace levels, we have got this box in the middle called the golden ratio zone. So here, from between this high and low, we are stuck in the middle, and there's a pivot level through the middle, the 50% level, and that's kind of where we're dodging around. So if WIF, dog with hat, is going to keep going higher here, we kind of need to get above and hold above this 50% level, which is at 3.4. So 3.4 is what the level that we need to kind of hold above. Looks okay. Three-wave pullback to this support. Really do want to turn higher from here, but it's not quite clear that we are going up it. And what I'm a little bit worried about is that this was just a three-wave correction here in WIF. And if we measure, it's not a textbook equal measured move. In fact, we've got room to go a little bit higher, but yeah, I don't think it's quite, I just feel like potentially that this is a little bit bear flaggy. Now, if we squeeze a little bit higher, the level that we need to watch out for and not get stuck and reverse that is this equal measured move, which is up here at 3.65, because that would then become one of my favorite correction moves. So from this high to low, 50%, 61.8, and this equal measured move, it's, yeah, wouldn't want to see us reverse there. So I'm a little bit neutral with, especially when we look at it on the daily and we have got, or the weekly, and we have got this really kind of tricky level. I really want to see us launch off it to say that this is it, we're going up. I wouldn't want to see it back underneath 3.4 and get stuck underneath 3.4, because if we did and it became resistance, I think that there is a chance that we go back to the lows at 3.0. So neutral, no trade for me in WIF at the moment. There's a few others that are doing pretty well. Let's take a look at some more of those. Got a request for Ondo Finance. Let's take a look at now. Anybody who knows me knows that if we look at a chart like this, the first thing I'm going to say is, oh, where's the equal measured move? Because especially in a new one, that's kind of where those levels are going to be tricky. And so if I measure from this low to this high and project it from here, now if you don't know how to use this tool, and I've set it up to work for me, you can do it with just a simple draw a line, move it, project it from this low. We are stuck, aren't we, at this equal measured move level? So we need to be a little bit careful. Let me put this tool back on. If we start to roll over here and we are starting to look like a little bit of a weekly spinning top, key support, if we're going to keep going higher, first support is going to be here at back testing this 61.8 level, 1.143. Underneath that, and if we were to get underneath it, get stuck underneath it, I think we're likely to see a big pullback. If we put our fibs on from this low to high, well, because we've got an ABC, kind of zone, because that 236 fib. So in this, we'd be super bullish then if we hold 1.18 on a pullback and keep going higher. That would be our kind of bull line. But if we get underneath 1.143 and it becomes resistance, I'm afraid we're going to see a bigger correction. And the most common retrace of a big three-wave rally like this is a pullback to the 786 in three waves. So 1, 2, 3, and that would bring us all the way back down here. So Ondo Finance, not saying we're going to do that, but that's what I would be watching out for. So key support on a pullback here is 1.18, and in this really kind of pink zone, we are going a little bit sideways. Now we might not do that. We might just do a very nice, three-wave rally, this previous swing low here, or these swing lows here, hold a support, and then we're still trending higher. If we pull back to here, let's put our Fibonacci on, and we get a really nice green. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a go, but bear in mind that this 1.47, 1.5 is really tough measured move resistance. If we can get above 1.5, well, we're likely to head to 1.7, but 1.99, or basically 2, would be where this swing is 1.618 of the first swing, which is very common in a trend move, and that would be then my target. So 1.99, basically 2, would be the target if we push to new highs in Ondo Finance. Okay, not just there's a new dog in town, not Doge but dog. Let's take a look at dog. A lot of people are talking about this one. It's gone into a little bit of a sideways correction, but I measured this from the spike lows, and we kind of have gone beyond the equal measured move level, which is here, and we are holding above this 1272. I do think, although we are trading sideways at the moment, there is room to go a little bit higher to this first 1.618 level at 0.0102, and above 0.0102 the target would be 0.015. So 0.010 first target, 0.015. Here we're at 9.4 in a little bit of a sideways consolidation. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see this break higher here. At the moment we are really in sideways consolidation. We've got a double top, and 0.0084 and this previous swing high and this previous swing low is a key underneath there. I'm afraid I think it's more likely that actually we have seen a more important high and a bigger pullback will ensue back to 0.007 and this previous swing low, because we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves up complete. At the moment I think that this swing is incomplete and we have room to go higher in dog. when we break out from this sideways consolidation, or potentially we see one more swing towards the lows and go higher. So yeah, not quite over in dog, more upside to come, I think, potentially. So here's can't just do dogs, we should do cats too. Let's take a look at Kai, which is the one that I've been in. Now I really like the chart pattern. I'm going to put regular candles on and clean up my chart here. Really like the chart pattern in this one. Let's take all my scribbles off. Talk about why I like it. First off, for me, you know, this is a textbook, unlike some of the charts we just looked at, which were clear 3 waves. This was a clear 5 waves up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a clear 3-wave pullback. And I really like this 3-wave pullback because it was a Gartley pattern. So in a Gartley pattern, your first swing comes back to a 61.8, second swing comes back to a 786. The best ones are equal measured moves. This was a little bit beyond that. And then, so I was watching for a reaction down here at this pink block, which is the 786. And boy, did we get a really nice bouncy reaction here. And the problem is, now here's our reaction here. Very nice. The problem with this is, let's go back to the daily. We're doing that 50%, 50%, 50% thing. So if I measure from this high to this low, we reversed at the 50%. If we measure from this low to this high, we pull back 50%, we went for double bottom, false breakdown, so that was 50% back. And then on this little rally here, let's go down to the 4 hour, you can see what we're doing here. No prizes for guessing where this stopped. So from this high to this low, we stopped at this 50% level. Means, you know, we're not quite breaking out, going up yet. A bullish pattern here would be this to turn into some kind of, you know, continuation inverted head and shoulders pattern. So we would have, you know, like this, and then we find a right shoulder here. But I have to say, you know, the problem when you have this 50% thing, the problem is, you know, that you're not quite going up until you can go beyond that 50%. Not only that, but this swing off the low here, because it's a wave 1, you know, there is really, you can retrace a wave 1 quite a long way, and then of course you have to be patient and wait for it, because the next swing will be really, really strong. So no breakout yet unless we can get above this 50% level, which is at 1.096. And now I'm just really looking for a bottoming pattern. If we look at these 4 hour moving averages, they're all completely flat. They're all bunched up here in the middle. That means no trend. It is a little bit of sideways chop, but I just keep in mind that we have got a much bigger, really nice, I think, you know, potentially bullish pattern setting up for another swing higher. And, you know, these little small caps don't go in with a ton of money and move it crazily, but they move really nicely. You know, you don't need any leverage for fun in this. So let's take a look at a few more of these crazy ones. Got some more requests. MFER. We won't say what that stands for. Okay. Now, this one is interesting because, you know, the key question is, have we bottomed yet? You know, we've done a textbook 3-wave measured move. If I measure this high to this low, project it from here, we've bounced from the 61.8 level textbook. So we can take this off. This potentially then is a little bit of a bottom. The first sign of a bottom, or the first target, is going to be the 236 fib from the high to low, and you put it over both swings. And that is where we've stalled. So that's the key level, 0.0531 in MFER is the one that tells us we are going up and the bottom is in. Also, we can say that support becomes resistance. This first swing was into the daily 50 moving average. It was resistance when we tried it on the 24th of May. It was resistance on the 26th of May. Now we're looking for it to be support. In other words, no daily close underneath it. So now we've got a really kind of tight range here when we look on this lower time frames as to whether we're going to be, which way we're going to go. Is this correction over and we're going to go back towards the lows? Is this just a 3-wave measured move, or are we going to break above this 236 fib level and hold above it at 0.0531 then? So here's our little sideways pattern going on, and this is our kind of key support. Don't know yet. We really do need, you know, that daily close. So I'm going to say a daily close underneath 0.047, we're probably going to see a bigger pullback, and a close above 0.0531 daily close, we're on our way up again. And again, this potentially, like a lot of charts, it's looking like potentially this was a 3-wave equal measured move rally, and we could see a bigger pullback unless we can break higher. So certainly not a good place to be buying. This is kind of a decision place. We need to see which way it's going to go next in this one. Okay, I hope they were useful. I will be trying again with lives tomorrow, and I've given myself to the weekend, otherwise we're going to switch to new software because I was really struggling, and I apologise. So live streams are coming as soon as I get it sorted.